All right, good afternoon. Welcome to our Green Committee. I will begin with the roll call.
Representative Kincaid,
Here.
Dr. Tharp Gilliam,
Present, sorry.
Corey O'Connor.
Here. All right, 3 members present. We have 3 informational items today. I will pass it off to Tim to give us the breakdown of those 3, and then we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. Today we have 3 informational items, as Mr. Councilman O'Connor said. Cycle 7 letter of interest update, proposed changes to the GROW agreement, and GROW agreement end date extensions. These are all informational items this month. There are no action items this month. Cycle 7 letters of interest. We received 21 projects in Cycle 7. This is the whole list of all the projects that we evaluated. You can see the project type, which were 3: infiltration and flow, sewer separation, and green infrastructure projects. And more importantly, the total project cost for consideration is over on the right. In these projects, there were 3 projects that did not have to submit a letter of interest. These were what we call bypass projects. Projects that in the fall, and this is for you, Representative Kincaid, in the fall, the GROW team has meetings with the municipalities and they can come and present projects to us. And these 3 projects were well thought out, thoroughly understandable. And so we sent them in January what's called a bypass letter, telling them you don't have to submit a letter of interest, you'll get the application in May. So those 3 were the 3 bypasses in Cycle 7. This is a summary of all of the projects, all 21 projects. Total project costs this cycle of all the projects was over $32 million. And the way that GROW works is it's a match between 18 and 85%. So if all the projects got a 15% match, that would be a little shy of $5 million award in Cycle 7. If all 21 got an 85% match, is 27, almost $28 million. And so we know that for the most part, GROW has typically been in between these 2 bookends. So here's all the projects again. Every project that's highlighted in green received an invitation from ALCOSAN to apply. If it's not in green, they got what is called a decline letter. And that, when we review these letters of interest, we also take a look at what is the probability of a single of this project actually getting a match. So some of these projects, they just were not going to get a match. They were either not well developed enough, or they're just in a location now where we know that they're not going to get overflow reduction in the interim wet weather plan. So these, so 6 did not get invites, the rest did. And the areas highlighted in yellow, you might notice in the POC sewer shed that they are 2 distinct sewer sheds. So those sewer sheds, we evaluate the GROW applications on a point of connection basis. And those 2 projects were completely different areas that don't impact each other. So what we did was we sent them 2 applications for those 2 projects. And those will be identified as 14A and 16A if they decide to apply for those projects. Are there any questions in regards to this?
Yeah, I have a question. The distinction that you just made about 14 and 16, like, I don't understand why that distinction was necessary.
Well, let's take the Mount Lebanon project 14, for example. They put together a project that had they were basically 2 distinct projects. One is in the Sawmill Run Basin, and the other one is in the Chartiers Creek Basin. we try to do our evaluation based on the overflow reduction at a point of connection, and to evaluate both those projects at the same time, it makes it very difficult, because then what it does is it could, like, one project may not have any impact, and that may influence the second project if we put them both together.
Okay,
And it makes
That
it
makes
easier on us for evaluation purposes, to be sure that when we assess for the project performance at the end of the project, that we're not trying to take into account too many points of connection. We want to
Right.
focus on that one singular point of connection. There might be a little bit of confusion with number 2, Bridgeville. That one's a tiny bit different, because everything is really focusing on overflow reduction at the C5310 structure, and C54 is being impacted, but that structure, it's part of the game, it's part of the project, but those two have to be together. I can't split those two apart, because there's really not a project that is impacting C54 in the way that GROW projects typically impact. They're diverting flows away from 5310 to 54.
thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, for the invited only projects, that number is now at over 16 million. And if we did the 15 to 85% bookends, it's about 2.5 million to almost $14 million in awards. And by looking at the projects, if I were to provide a reasonable estimate, I would say that this cycle is probably around $8 to $10 million in awards. But we have to get the applications. We have to see the information that they provide to us before we can make a true assessment. Just by doing this for so many cycles, you start to get an understanding as to how strong certain projects are and roughly what you believe their match is going to be. Are there any questions on the Cycle 7 invitation only ones?
Can you remind us why some of the projects are invited?
Projects get invited because as they're presented to us, we have a reasonable understanding that they would be successful projects. By taking a look at what they provide to us in the letter of interest or in previous correspondence with them, we have a pretty good understanding of the areas that will have impact. And we look at it two ways: overflow reduction. And now that we're looking at this through the lens of the interim wet weather plan expansion, tunnels, how that impacts the projects, overflow reduction now gets focused on other areas that aren't immediately impacted by those locations. But then we also take a look at the stormwater removal component of it. And does this project provide us with enough information to reasonably assume that they can get a lot of water out of the system? And the stormwater match is 25 to 15%. So, and you usually see that with I&I projects, that they get a lower match, but the projects are still heavily impactful because we believe they're getting the water out of the system, and they're worthwhile for us to invest in.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? We'll have more information about who submitted the applications at the July Green Committee meeting. GROW agreement changes. This is the only slide I have for this because Max and I, did a little bit of talking or exchanging of emails, and I think we both came to the conclusion that we don't need any changes. Max, back me up on this.
That's correct. This is cycle 7. We've done some minor changes in previous years. The last discussion we had was about situations if something left the service area or otherwise there was some change of ownership of the municipality or municipal authority. So those changes were made in cycle 6. We have not encountered any other issues over the last year that would warrant revisiting the standard template for GROW grant agreements in this cycle 7.
So we're doing good. The agreement is a strong agreement.
Sounds good.
Any questions? Okay. GROW agreement end date extensions. Now, this is only informational. This is to give the committee an understanding as to what might be on the board meeting for June. We're not expecting anything in May. So there are a lot of extensions. Here's only half of them. The areas highlighted in green are areas where the applicant has already sent us a letter requesting the extension. If it's in yellow, I'm only identifying it so you can see that their end date is coming up, but I'm not anticipating that we're going to need an extension. Areas in red, I have no information one way or another, and more correspondence with the applicants are going to be needed to ensure that, that they're either on the path of closing this project out or they're going to need another extension. And here's the same thing, the second half, and same thing. If it's in yellow, I'm not anticipating that they're going to need the extension, but I wanted to make the committee aware of the number of agreements that are coming due. And the two at the bottom, they sent us letters being proactive. I think that these two are understanding that the projects are going to need to get extended well into the future due to the situations that each project is facing. Are there any questions on GROW grant and date extensions? Hearing none. Future meeting date, believe that is in July. I don't know the exact date, but it's in July.
We'll be there.
Excellent. There'll be a lot more to talk about in the July meeting, a lot more. So
Well, thank you, Tim. We will be there. Do I have to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Second,
All in favor?
second. Aye.
All right. Aye. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Or-
Nice job, Tim.